Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. Now, we are stepping into a series where you're going to see a series of guests come on. And this is because these guest speakers are also the speakers for our upcoming Concussion Nerds Virtual Summit, which, if you could see me on a video, I'm like happy dancing right now because I'm so excited. I have asked every single speaker to come join me on the podcast because I want you to get to know them. They're a speaker on this summit because they share passion. They have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and I respect every single one of them and what they bring to this concussion space. And so I really want you to know who these individuals are too. And so today I'm stoked because we are getting to be joined, and I can never pronounce your last name, so I'm going to let you do it in a second. I always call her OT Shelly. And on her Instagram, you're going to find her as OT Shelly. And Shelley, I think you did it because, none of us can pronounce your last name.
For sure.
OT Shelly, she's an occupational therapist, but not the typical occupational therapist you'll think of. She is also a lifetime concussion nerd, which I love. And she has her own journey and story as well as a piece of what brings her fire and her fuel and her passion to this space. So, Shelley, I'm so excited for you to join us. Thank you for being here.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Natasha. Yes, my last name is La Tendresse. So it's French. It means tenderness.
That's beautiful. So it sounds beautiful. And now that I even know the meaning, I love it even more. I'm still just going to say OT Shelly.
You can call me OT Shelly. There you go. And yeah, I call myself a holistic OT because I really encompass the whole person. I never just look at one area. Like here I am for cognitive, here I am for fine motor. Just like I would kind of call you a holistic PT to some degree, because with concussion, we are looking at the whole picture, so many different areas. It's impossible to just look at one. And if you do, you're doing a disservice to the client. So with that, pieces that I add to my occupational therapy, besides looking at the person's whole life, is, adding my yoga knowledge as a yoga instructor, my coaching knowledge as a health coach, and putting this together. It sort of creates a model of partnership and empowerment for the client more. And the yoga piece adds a co-regulation piece. As you know, with a therapist, we can really dive deep into that. So that's sort of my OT holistic picture. I work a lot with yoga. Yeah, thanks. And I work a lot with nature as well. I work with clients outdoors. I work with them at equestrian stables or, climbing a mountain.
I'm going to dig into that piece a little bit, because I think when most people think of occupational therapy, or at least in BC, so OT Shelly and I both live in British Columbia. And so at least in BC, an occupational therapist kind of falls into this box of either case management with insurance companies.
Yes.
Or fine motor with more, I'm going to say neuro rehab.
Yes.
Or cognitive rehabilitation, but it's usually like in the clinic role or like in the person's home. And so when you talk about, and I always see you share on your stories too, like we're going to the stables or like we're outdoors and we're meeting in a park. Like, why do you choose to approach occupational therapy and that piece in that function as opposed to working in a clinic?
Great question, because I used to run a clinic, and there were great things I loved about it, as I see with, your clinics, and that is the controlled setting and having these pieces of technology at your fingertips and whatnot. But in real life isn't controlled setting. It's an unexpected horse, movement or unexpected branch in your way, I guess. And so I like to see people in the uncontrolled setting, for getting back to real life. And my whole goal is to help them get back to real life and also what they love. So I want to see people doing what they love in the environments they love. And so I feel like we have you guys in the clinic, but this missing piece is missing. And I just feel that's a way I can really serve people for what the true meaning of OT is, to get back to the activities you love and a meaningful life. So that's why I work out there.
You're that bridge. Mm-hmm. You're a bridge. Like,
yes.
I think so many times clinicians struggle with how do we bridge clinic to real life?
Yes.
And you get to not only be the bridge, because you're that, but you're also the person that can hold their hand as they walk across the bridge.
Yes. And just last week, I worked with a client and we literally climbed a mountain. Like literally, we walked up the pavement, up the hill, and we noticed one thing, she was noticing the cardio and whatnot, but then we got to the trails. And then there were rocks and roots. And then suddenly the symptoms came on. And then we were able to talk through that education piece, which I also do a lot of education, is like, well, your visual system's turning on, right? Now we've got other things happening, vestibular. Now we've got, where are my feet on this trail? Now symptoms are coming. And then she understood the whole picture completely from that experience.
Oh, that physio session. That's the best OT session ever. I'm like,
it crosses over.
We take in our clinic. So obviously you've seen the clinic. So in the clinic, we have all our tech and stuff too, but we are on this property where we can go out in the grass. Like we have this, like, one of my favorite things is like when it's nice out, taking my clients out to like the parking lot or this little field so we can get out of the clinic and be like, I had this one client once, and I remember there's a quiet neighborhood just behind us. So we were in the middle of the street. We knew it was safe, I promise. And we'd be do like shuffle steps and sprints and like back pedals and stuff like all up and down the street just to get out of the clinic setting. So I want the audience to know a little bit more about you and not just because one of the pieces is when we look at someone on a journey, for example, and I always say someone on a healing journey, when we're pushing into years or even months, one of the things that gets questioned is our identity. And so much of what we use to identify our identity is what we do as a job. And we're all guilty of it. And so I also want to kind of shed light to like, who is OT Shelly beyond an occupational therapist? And I do know, and I'm very open with my audience, that I've never experienced a concussion and PCS, but that's not your story. And I know that your story fuels a lot of why you're doing what you're doing today. So can you share a bit about who is Shelley? Like, remove the OT, who is Shelley, and what's a bit of your story that brought you to today?
Sure. Well, if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I play a lot. I play outside a lot. And in general, like, I'm a road cyclist. I hike, I swim in the ocean. You'll usually find me, outside on a beach or on a bike. And so, what's that?
You're outside all the time.
I am. But that's sort of who I am. I grew up on a beach, and I'm right now actually at my cabin on Savory Island. So, that's sort of who I am. I like to have fun. I see fun as a very hugely important part of life and equal to work. And I love what I'm doing now because they're crossing over. And that's the ultimate, right? Anyway, so that's me. My experience, because I like to play a lot, is recreational concussion. So in 2017, I was in a really bad ski crash, and that's a passion that I haven't fully gotten back to, but I've gotten back to most other things. And that unfortunately started a bit of a cascade of a roller coaster of getting re-injured. And again, as you know, the world of concussion back then, even myself, who worked in brain injury, neuro rehab, neurodevelopment, that's my background, all things neuro, still, that I'd never really been concussed. Probably as a child, I teased my parents about that. Like, how many concussions did we actually have back then? But this was an up and down roller coaster of getting back up, getting knocked down. Literally, I probably had about 8 concussions, running into branches at the beach, big driftwood, like clocking yourself, that kind of thing. So that built huge resilience in me because I went through about 4 to 5 years of re-injuring myself, and usually within 3 to 6 months of the last one. And so I did do some of the traditional therapies, which did help me, especially for the insight on how to heal. But I also knew that I had to do something in my own life every single day myself to get out of this, because there was no way I was going to continue this cycle. There was no way I was going to let my life be knocked down fully by concussion. So I think that passion, that background in me really, I hope it emotes to people so that they see, I guess, a model of resilience, and also definitely it gives me the perspective and the empathy to know what the other side feels like, because I have been to the dumps with concussion, and not let myself go to the deepest hole because of my spirit, I guess, is just no way. Like, I'm getting back on my bike. And it's kind of a joke with my cycling team. They're like, she's back. And that's kind of how it went for like 5 years.
Yeah.
I'd disappear. I'd have to work my own rehab to get back on the road bike. Then I'd show up at the group. I'm ready. And so I try to really tell my clients, listen, what you are now, it's never what you're going to be. We're all different from 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
Look at a new mother. I mean, I got a new baby. I am not the same person that I was 9 months ago. And so, yeah.
You nailed it on the head. And I know we talk about this in Nerds all the time, but like, if you met me 3 years ago and you met me today, you're meeting two different women.
That's right.
You're meeting an evolved version of me today.
That's right.
And I have, you have clients, and you probably have clients that say this to you too, like, oh, I wish I'd known you 10 years ago. And I'm like, no, you don't. I would have been super passionate and tried to help you, but the treatment you're getting today is not what you would have got from me 10 years ago, right? Like, we never learning ever. And I think what I love about you, Shelley, is, I always say, like, people are like, how do I get the most out of Nerds, for example? Or like, how do I learn the most? And I was like, you show up and you pour into it. Like, I highlight you in my email sequence because I'm just like, you're that person who, if there was someone who could be front and center on a Zoom call, it was right? Like, you took advantage of every opportunity of the program so that you could take that knowledge back to your clients in a way that served what you do. Like, the beautiful thing, I think, is you're an OT. You truly don't do all the physical testing or the type of rehab that I teach in Concussion Nerds. But you've taken that knowledge and you've taken how to understand these different systems and pulled that into your world to be like, here's how I can use this information to better understand my clients, to support them, to serve them, to show up for them. And if I need to, refer them out. It's beautiful. And I find that the OTs, the acupuncturists, the neurooptometrists, the naturopaths that come into Nerds, they're people like you. They're people that like see the value in understanding it at that depth so that you can take that into your program. Now, I know that what you've taken a lot of your Nerds insight into is in building your yoga program. Mm-hmm. And I know, like, when you talk to Shelley, yoga is like the epitome of a treatment. Like, this woman loves yoga. She teaches it adapted. You have a whole skill set on it. So talk to me about why you love yoga as a tool for post-concussion.
Okay.
This is where she gets the soapbox, my friends.
Yeah, I'm getting excited.
Actually, and just let you go here. Actually, we're going to do this twofold. So I'm going to give you two questions.
Yep.
One is, why is yoga such a powerful tool for post-concussion? And then we're going to start with the simple one. Do I have to be upside down and do I have to have my head down to do yoga? Because that position scares a lot of people.
It does. It does. Great question. I can totally answer that. Okay, so we know that post-concussion, to rewire the brain and the systems affected, we need to move. Okay, so therefore, all movement is great post-concussion. Would you agree with that? Or movement in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so we also know that the nervous system is this background system that holds us back in our recovery. Would you agree with that?
And yeah.
Okay, and the third thing I would say is that we need consistency of a routine that we do, okay, to improve. And I'm sure you would agree with that one too, right? Consistency of routine.
Consistency, hands down, yes, screaming from the rooftop. Yes. Routine 100% serves its purpose, yes.
There you go. So what I love about what I feel that post-concussion yoga classes offer is that it's a container. It's a fun routine that you can do daily. It's a container to develop and explore the nervous system safety, creating safety in the nervous system, breathing and grounding, which I know that I'm so happy that all you guys, all the clinics are now using as techniques. And that's part of a yoga class, inherent breathing and grounding through the whole class. There's mindset work is just woven into the class. We do, intentions and mantras, and they come naturally throughout the class. There's movement of the head through space as we move, which is vestibular. And no, I don't put you upside down right away. We work up to that goal. So with the right sequencing, which I sequence very carefully, my classes are progressive. So if you went to a regular yoga class, they're not going to be thinking of all of these issues that you'd have post-concussion. So you're going to get too much up and down, perhaps too much, movement right away. And then people get overwhelmed and then they're like, I can't do yoga. But when I sequence things properly, we work up to that type of head movement, moving into down dog is what you're thinking of. And then even it incorporates neck movement and strength. So that's the cervical component, body awareness and trust of your body. And that's super important. And then you get a little bit of the woo-woo. You get the energy shifting stuff we talk about. And, but
I love the woo. Bring on the woo.
I know you love woo-woo. So there you go. And then just stuff like balance and rhythm, like I could go on forever. But basically I feel the perfect complement to clinic rehab, because it's something in this container people can do at home. And a yoga class is guided. So it's a whole 45 minutes of me guiding you through with a video or live. And the power of that is the power of co-regulation. And I know that you use this as well as a therapist.
I do. Go deeper on that for the people listening.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is she?
Okay. So I could sit here and just tell you what to do. You should do this many breaths and you should do this. Put your feet on the ground and ground. And then you should move your head this way. And then you should do this exercise. And here's the paper. So that's one way of getting somebody to do this stuff.
I'm going to preface this, it's not how Shelley does it.
Not how I do it. So A, are you going to do the stuff? Or are you just is that paper going to sit there? B, are you going to do it right? Is it going to really work? Are you going to believe in it? Now, when I talk about co-regulation and flow and getting this to actually make change in your nervous system and your body, when you're following me and I'm teaching, I'm breathing, and I don't even have to tell you to breathe. When I say, inhale, rise, exhale down, you're going to do it. So your body's going to follow. And
you feel the natural coherence of someone.
Yes.
Like, it's beautiful. And I love that. Sorry, I'm totally interrupting you, but I love this.
No, go for it. Go for it.
And I love that, hey, you don't have to be side by side. Like the fact that they can happen through a video. And I think with clients in clinic is if we're really struggling, how many times, like I'm saying, I want to say like, put our hands up. Because I know Shelley and I put our hands up here and like nod your head if you're listening. How many times have you been there when someone's like, just breathe? And you're like, oh, I am breathing. Like, right? You're like, no, like to tell somebody just breathe doesn't work, versus one of the most powerful tools that I use when I'm working on breath in clinic. And I know you do it, especially if you're in person, but through your videos too, is that piece of no words.
That's right.
No words. It's literally just sitting beside that person or just looking at that person. And it's like Shelley and I are through a screen right now, but like I'm looking at her.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just see and feel the breath. And that it's called rapport. Like you're getting into rapport with somebody. And that if you're working with a client, so if you're a clinician listening to this, and if you're a client listening to this, you're like, oh, that's what happens. But if you're a clinician and you're trying to help someone ground and you're trying to help someone settle. Now, a piece of this is as clinicians, you have to be comfortable with stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be comfortable with calm and silence, which is really hard for some people. But try literally just sitting with your client and you, I'm going to say there's breathe. But in that breath, really, for us, intentionally slowing our breath down, and you will notice that after a couple minutes, your client starts to match your breath rhythm.
Totally.
And so I love that is just a piece that you instinctively, and I know inherently do through your videos, that your clients that partake in them, whether it's a live class that you teach or whether it's one of your recorded classes, don't realize is happening. But that's beautiful.
That's right. Well, I love that you pointed out about live or videos. So it's interesting. Some people love that it's a pre-recorded video in my program, because they're in their safe place. They're in their living room. And I talk about making yourself a safe place, setting it all up, making sure you feel good and grounded and there's no tippy furniture around. So they can be in their safe place. They don't have anyone watching. So they can really try these things like put your hands on your rib and take this type of deep breath without feeling self-conscious, because no one's there. There's no one staring them down, and they can really experiment with their body a bit more, not feel silly doing these poses and stuff. So I think that's the advantage of the online. The advantage of the in-person, and funny if I'll tell a little story that just yesterday. So I'm up at my island and I'm actually here working with a client who's returning post-injury to this little rural island. And so the city recommendations don't quite cut it. So they're like, we need an island OT who's like, can get back to this kind of life. And I took the client's neuro rehab exercises, made them into a yoga class yesterday. We sat in her front yard, got down on the ground for the very first time since she's been out of hospital, on the ground, the real ground, the grass. And its sun is warm and the birds were just going crazy. And we did her exercises in the container of a yoga class with the breathing, which she hadn't done. And it was just, she was like, what happened? Like, I've never been able to get into child's pose. I've not been able to move my arms above my head. And then we just laid there for like 15 minutes after the yoga class and basically cloud watched, had our, lying in Shavasana pose and chatted, and it was just the coolest class. And she was just like, this is the best OT I've ever had. So that's the story of an example of, how different, and also just being in the environment that you love. It makes people let go, lets their nervous system calm, and they see changes. Yeah.
And I love that you have that knowledge that goes to then also to be able to take that into nature and into their real world. I always say, there's this piece of that story, just like, oh, those are the stories that just like get to me, right? Like there's those moments, and I'm sure you see them all the time too, Shelley, of this happened in my intensive week, is like, we have this beautiful opportunity as clinicians to help our clients reestablish trust in themselves. But to do that, we need to provide them opportunities in their bodies to find that trust.
Yes.
We need to take them out of their head and put them back into their body. And that's what you did for that woman. And that's what gave her that ability to do those things she's never done before. And I can talk about this topic till the cows come home, because I realized that this is a gift that I truly have with my clients. And it's a gift that you have it because you create these novel experiences, but you're able to create such a foundation of trust and safety and rapport that they go for it.
Yes.
One of my clients who, she was just here for an intensive, and I will never share the video because I took it just for her, but I have never seen pure joy on someone's face. I was sitting there watching her move because she hasn't moved her body in so long, and like watching the smile on her face and watching her move. And like I'm going to start freaking crying talking about this. Like, she was crying. I'm literally sitting there like capturing it for her to send to her. And there's tears like streaming down my face. And that story that you just shared like reminds me of that moment, like that you created a window for that woman to reestablish trust in herself.
Yes. Yes.
And that is
100%. 100%. And I think we share that, Natasha, just that true passion. Like, this doesn't feel like work for me. This is like, it's just passion. And it's just, now you're going to make me cry. But it is seeing somebody come, like, connect their mind and body like that. Where is my body? Where is my mind? Where am I? Oh my gosh, like, this moment is amazing. That's like true mindfulness too. And it's just putting all these pieces together. And that's truly why I can't, and I know you can't either, just work with one piece. Like, I do the gross motor, you do the fine motor, you do the cognitive, you do this piece. People aren't pieces. People are a whole picture, a whole package, right?
Oh, that right there. Right there. Okay. So, because I feel like Shelley and I are both on the brink of like tears pouring down our faces. As I shared at the beginning, okay, Shelley is a speaker for the Concussion Nerds Virtual Summit. And if you're listening to this podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just see it like emanating out of her. For the summit, Shelley is going to be teaching for the healing journey track. Okay. So for those of you on a journey on your like recovery path from concussion, if you've loved listening to this amazing woman speak and she's pulling at your heartstrings and like you feel that like, oh my gosh, I want more. Shelley is absolutely a speaker for the Concussion Nerds Virtual Summit, and she is going to be speaking more in depth about the power and benefit of, I'm going to say adapted yoga, but yoga as a whole, because the concept of yoga scares people. It shouldn't, but it does. And so this will be a beautiful opportunity for you to understand more about the power of yoga. And she's going to lead you through a short, actual adapted class as part of her presentation for the summit as well. So she's not just going to talk at you and tell you what it is. She's going to actually give you a taste of what it is so you can experience this. So if you are listening, if you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm in. Shelley is one of our amazing speakers. You're going to get to experience yoga in a way that serves you and your healing, heart, body, mind, and soul. Drop down to the show notes. The link to sign up for this summit is there. Shelley, thank you so much for being here today. Your passion exudes out of you. Like you can't deny that it's there. I know you have the biggest heart humanly possible. Thank you for everything that you do in this space. And thank you for being part of the summit.
Thank you so much for having me, Natasha. I loved this interview. And without nerds, I wouldn't have the backup to really, feel 1,000% confidence about what I'm doing. So I appreciate you for that. And thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Shelley and I, if you didn't notice, are both wearing our Making the Invisible Visible t-shirts. If you join the summit, you will see a link on where you can get your own. But until next week, my friends, wishing you an amazing day. And we will talk to you very soon. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.